Hola, buenas noches. Good evening. My name is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications with La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, welcoming you to tonight's En Casa con la Plaza. En Casa con la Plaza is La Plaza's virtual programming, almost entering our third year. My gosh, we've been doing this since April of 2020, at the beginning of the lockdown, the pandemic lockdown. And now we're getting out of the lockdown. But we're going to continue these presentations, conversations, demonstrations of performances from our home to yours, as long as we can. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Union Pacific Foundation and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. If you're on Zoom, thank you for joining us. Use the chat feature to let us know where you're viewing from. Also use the chat to do shout outs. Use the Q&A if you want to ask questions. We'll take them during the conversation or maybe afterwards. Those of you who have joined us on Facebook, use the comment section as well. Let us know where you're viewing from as well as comments, shout outs, questions, lo que sea. We invite them. A bit of an update of what's going on in La Plaza. We're open every day except Tuesday, noon from 5 p.m. We've been open since last July. Starting tomorrow, we're a mask-free, no proof of vaccination, but we're trusting that you're all healthy when you come to visit La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. We'll be open tomorrow 10 to 5 and also Sunday 10 to 5. All of our exhibitions are open except for one room, which is getting prepared, our gallery on the second floor. We're currently organizing L.A. Memo Chicano art from 1972 to 1989. So that opens on March 18th. And it'll go on till August. So please come on by. We're going to have a reception at a couple Fridays from now, from 6 to 8 with some food, entertainment, and the artists will be there as well, some of them. Let's see, we also recently opened La Plaza Cocina. That's our museum, teaching kitchen, and tiendita dedicated to the best cuisine in the world, Mexican cuisine. So that we're open Monday through Friday, 12 to 5 for now. But soon we'll be starting some cooking classes, cooking demonstrations, and more at La Plaza Cocina. And soon we'll be launching the website specifically for La Plaza Cocina pretty soon. So with that, let's get started with the program. Musicals centered on the Latino experience, like West Side Story, In the Heights, Kiss of the Spider Woman, and others, are few and far between, but they're pretty memorable. Tonight we're going to meet two creatives bringing fresh takes within the musical theater genre on local stages. Coincidentally, both of these guests with us will be opening musicals on the same weekend here in LA. We're very lucky. We have with us today Teresa Chavez. She's co-creator and director of Adobe Punk. She's an award-winning interdisciplinary theater artist whose work as a writer, director, and producer has been seen internationally, locally, and on national TV. She's co-founder and producing artistic director of About Productions, now in its 33rd year. Her work is focused on uncovering buried cultural histories, exploring notions of cultural identity and authenticity, and spirituality. You may know her from Evangeline, the Queen of Make-Believe with Luis Perez of Los Lobos de Ros Portillo, The Hand of the Father with singer-songwriter Alejandro Escovedo, and video artist Janice Tanaka, and They Shoot Mexicans, Don't They, with musician Quetzal Flores and video artist and choreographer Francisco Martinez, filmmakers Isaac and Jude Artenstein. We also have with us tonight Mayu Molina Lehmann, a Mexican-American playwright and author. She received her BA in Spanish Literature and Latin American Studies at Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. During her studies, she became deeply involved in the university's musical theater program. She's the author of a young adult novel, La Hija del Candidato, and also a bilingual children's book, A New Life for Candy. She's now in Washington, D.C., and her play also opens up in a couple weekends from now. So with that, please zoom in Mayu and Teresa.
Hello.
Hi.
Buenas noches.
Hola, buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Gracias. Gracias por la invitación.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was kind of a short notice for the both of you, but such a coincidence that on the same weekend you're both opening up shows that one, Teresa, yours is new to the theater world, and Mayu, yours has been shown before on the East Coast. So this will be a conversation. We're going to show some photographs and some clips and a little bit of music. So first of all, Teresa, tell us a little bit about Adobe Punk.
Thank you. I just want to make sure you can see me because my computer just did something weird, but we're good, right? You
Yes,
can
we're
see
good.
and hear me? Okay. So I can't see and hear. I can't see you, but I can hear you. So we're good. Adobe Punk is opening in a couple of weeks. It's been in development for a couple of years, of course, interrupted by the pandemic. It's a piece that we call a theatrical zine with music. So it is a form of a musical, but it's actually a very unique production that is set in Bell Gardens. The first production or professional piece to be set in Bell Gardens. And it's also the first piece to explore the LA punk scene of the early 1980s, which the late 70s and early 80s was the seminal period for punk in LA, as you probably know. We like to say punk music finds life in one of LA's oldest adobe homes in this original theater work. It's set, like I said, in the early 1980s. Three young working class youth in their late 20s, early 30s, are squatting in a house in Bell Gardens. And they've set up shop in a sense with as a band. But they don't know they're in one of the oldest adobe homes in Los Angeles. And as they begin to develop their songbook, they discover the history of the house. And so there's this wonderful relationship between these young youth DIYing it and also discovering mostly the California history of the city and of the specific house that they're in.
And if you who was it written by you or
It's co-written by actually myself and my son Gabriel Garza. It was his idea. He and I are 7th and 8th generation Californios, and our families lived in LA since the 18th century. And he got interested in the house that the story takes place in, because in the early 1980s, the house actually burnt down in a fire. There were two homes in Bell Gardens. There was also one almost across the street from La Plaza. The Lugo house is on the other side of the Olvera Street Plaza, so closer to the Union Station side on Alameda. And then there were two homes in Bell Gardens. One is still there, and it's the oldest house in LA County. The other home is the one I'm talking about, which burnt down in this fire. And the story goes, because they never figured out how the house was in this accident, in a sense. They never figured out what happened, but the story was that some young folks broke in and accidentally started the fire. The house was being prepped to be moved. It's a very funny story. Moved to Huntington Park because the property had been purchased by someone who didn't care about the house. And Huntington Park, which is right next door, said, we'll take the house and turn it into a historic place, a museum. And then in that in-between period is when this fire occurred. So my son got interested in the relationship between punks squatting and this house, because in the early 1980s, when this fire occurred, there was a lot of squatting by punks, squatting in houses, old buildings, churches, and the like. And so he kind of put that idea together. And we've been exploring, what is the relationship between Californios and punks? And one of our, we did a series in 2020, right before lockdown, a reading series of the work in progress. And one of our panelists because we had interactive panels with that. He said he thought Californios were the first punks. And I thought that was really interesting. So we've kind of used that as a way to find one of the intersections between a 19 or 18 or 17th century reality and 1980 and contemporary reality too. Our company likes to contemporize history and make it super contemporary and relevant to our audiences so that they have a way into our work.
All right. Just for those who may not know, as far as what Californios are, Californios were the residents of this area. Was it between, during the Spanish occupation or the Mexican, or was it in between?
It was all three. So it began under the New Spain, the government of New Spain. Many of these families came at that time. And then, of course, it became Mexico in the 1820s. And then, of course, it became the United States in the 1850s. Late 1840s, early 1850s, officially 1850. So they lived under three governments, but they also were living, in a sense, very separate from New Spain. I mean, they were in New Spain, it was Alta California, right? But they were separated by hundreds of miles from any developed areas. So they really were creating their own culture. And that was also this sort of DIY reality for them.
Okay, so yeah, so I could see the connection. As you say, they were separate from, so they were in essence outsiders, and had to develop their own culture, taking bits and pieces, of course, from where they came from, whether it be Spain itself, Mexico as a mestizos, or even indigenous, and it all came together in a place that was pretty isolated, which is here in the area that's now Los Angeles. Hello, I think you froze. Teresa, can you hear? All right. Well, hopefully she'll get back on. We have a little bit of let's see. I could show you some stills of the production. Okay, this, as you saw, were three of the actors. It's three people who are the punks from the 70s and 80s who take over this abandoned Adobe. And this is one of the singers. We were hoping that Teresa could give us a little bit more context of what was going on, a little bit of the plot. But it looks like they're playing their own instruments. And well, let's bring on Mayu.
Yes.
Mayu. All right, let's go. How are you?
Good. Very happy to be with you, Abelardo. Thank you very much for the invitation.
All right, well, tell us about Monarch. Monarch, a Mexican-American musical.
Yes.
Give us a little bit about what it's about.
Yes. So Monarch tells the story of a Mexican immigrant from Michoacan who moves to the United States with his young daughter. And he has a business and he does well. And he does, like many immigrants, does all kinds of odd jobs. He's a gardener, a painter, a plumber, driver, he does all kinds of jobs. And so he lives in the United States for 20 years. And then, we discover that he's undocumented. And so he starts being persecuted by ICE. And it's how his life, from being a very well-respected man and from being very, very beloved in his community, and how he becomes like a fugitive. And he escaped, the difficulties he encounters because of that. And also his daughter is a 20-year-old dreamer. And so we also talk about the issue of the dreamers. And we play a lot with the image of the monarch butterfly, which, as you know, is a constant migrant. And so the play is structured with the life of the monarch butterfly. And we follow the life cycle of the monarch butterfly as it leaves Mexico. And then the first generation of butterflies dies after it crosses to Texas. And then the second and third generation of monarchs continue the journey north And then the third generation all of a sudden feels the urge to return to the same forest of their ancestors in the Central Valley of Mexico. And then the cycle starts over again. So that cycle informs the play, and we play with the image of the monarch butterfly and immigrants.
And what was the inspiration for the play itself? And first of all, is this the first one that you've been part of?
Yes, this is my first play. And the story is, I wrote this with my brother, who's a composer, Alfonso Molina. And he was studying music in Manhattan School of Music like a decade ago. And I went to visit him, and we went to Broadway, and we saw all these beautiful plays. And I remember telling him, how come there's nothing for Mexican Americans? How come? I mean, there's so many millions of us. How come there's nothing? And then I said a question with pure ignorance. Why don't we write one? And so that was the start of this whole project. And so many years later, here we are with Monarch, a Mexican American musical.
And so basically there's a couple, there's the story itself, and then there's the music and the composition. Who is responsible for what?
So my brother wrote the music, and it's all musical. It's important to say that it's a classic musical in the sense that there's music all the time. I mean, there's dialogue, but it's all with the music. And so there's like 54 songs, all together, or musical segments. And so he wrote the music, and between both of us, we wrote the lyrics and the story itself.
And so this is the first production here on the West Coast, but you've mounted it before?
No, this is the first time we're going to show it. This is a premiere.
Wow, incredible.
Yes, so we're very excited. And we wanted to do it in California because of, the Mexican American, population there, so.
And you've been, I'm assuming you've had rehearsals for a little while?
Yes, for a while.
But you've been on the West Coast, and what the actors and musicians and so are here you're on the East Coast,
yes.
Out of Washington, D.C., correct?
Yeah, yes. Well, it's a new world. It's interesting because this play was made possible because of the pandemic, strangely enough. Zoom and all that forced us to rehearse online and to do things that we would never have thought of before. There you go. So it's strange that how the pandemic has allowed us to improvise and do things that we would never have thought before.
And how did you handle first auditions and rehearsals?
Zoom and and meetings physically, but a lot of Zoom meetings.
And who will be has your brother been here in L.A.?
We have been there. Yeah, we have been there before. Yes.
All right, good. And tell us where it's going to be showing.
It's going to be shown at the Hudson Theater in West Hollywood, and you can get tickets at the hudsontheater.com. And I have a special offer for your audience. We have a 25% discount with the code Monarch25.
All right, good. And I'll post that towards the end of the conversation here. I have a little clip here, a little YouTube clip.
Yes, that's an old one, but go ahead.
Okay, good. Well, let's go ahead and show. This is from recorded about 3-4 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been a long time coming, but we're happy to be here. Yes. Monarch.
Oops, let me start that again. Sorry.
Highlights the joy.
Zoom is fun. Here goes.
It is. The hopes and the heartbreaks of immigrants in the United States.
The miracle will unfold. Those are not leaves hanging from the heavens. They are not leaves floating around. Yes, they are butterflies.
The most amazing creature of all, it's a monarch, my girl. A butterfly that travels tells and smiles despite of it all. And she won't stop, she will overcome alone.
Monarch is a musical that reflects the life of undocumented immigrants in the United States.
It's about normal, decent people from Latin America that have been living in the United States for the last 20 or 30 years, and now they're being asked to leave.
Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Luis. I've been working in this country for the last 20 years. Every day I wake up early and get to work at this workshop. Some people call me Luis, some people call me paisano, others hermano. That's all okay with me. If I could help you in anything, I will give you a mano. So I'm a gardener, a painter, a plumber, sometimes I'm a driver.
We tell the story through Luis and his daughter, who is a dreamer, meaning that she was brought to this country as an infant. Luis has been working in this country for the last 20 years without any problems. But everything changes when he and his family start being persecuted by immigration forces.
It's a matter of time that I catch you. We can play this game if you want. You can hide, you can pray, you can run, but you don't stand a chance. It's a matter of time that we stop. Let's see about that. We can fight forever, but you will be gone.
All right. Well, we don't want to give the whole thing away.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping that the audience will get out of the production?
Well, we want to present a positive image of Mexican Americans. You know, there's a distorted image in the media and movies about Mexican Americans, Hispanics in general. And we want to present the positive, you know, like this guy who's a hard worker, who takes care of his family, who's a good guy, who just wants the best for his family and for his friends. And so we want to present a positive image of Hispanics, of who we know we are, instead of the distorted and negative image that we are portrayed as so often, you know.
Let me unmute. Thank you. Yeah, using music and I'm assuming you're also having dance.
A little bit, yes. There's one number, one dance number, yes.
And how big is the company that's performing?
12.
Wow. And that includes dancers and the actors, the singers.
Yeah, we have eight actors for choir. Yeah, there's not and they all dance. Yeah.
And as you mentioned before we started the program, this is kind of like a test run to try to get.
Yes. We just want to show it because we think it will resonate with Mexican Americans, Hispanics, and immigrants in the United States, you know, especially with the anti-immigrant rhetoric of some last years. I think we want to see us represented as in a positive light, as good people, as hardworking people, as people who contribute a lot to the United States. So we think it will resonate with a lot of people that see Monarch.
And by combining music and drama, and I'm assuming, you know, is there like a romance here as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's a romance, of course. Yes,
all right.
It's a love story.
And do you think it's going to resonate with the community?
Yes, absolutely. That's why we want to show it in LA. That's why we want to start there, because it has to work in LA and in California. It has to work with the Hispanic community, right, and then grow from there.
Well, thank you. I'll post the ticket information in the chat and also on the comment section right at the tail end of the program. So
thank you.
So thank you for joining us. Please stick around in case there's questions and for a little bit of interaction with you and Teresa. Teresa, welcome back. Could you hear Teresa?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, good. Well, let's go back to talking about Adobe Punk. First of all, we were referencing the Californios, how they were kind of outsiders, you know, not part of the United States at the time, which was still in its infancy. but also not part of New Spain or Mexico. They were the outsiders. And then the punk era, the 70s and the 80s. Were you part of that era?
I was, yes.
As a musician, as a participant, as a just
Well, are you getting an echo?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay, let me turn this off here. Okay, this might help. I was a musician at the time. I have a interdisciplinary background, and I had my own little punk band called We Is Girls Wig, and writing original songs. But I also lived in West Hollywood multiple times so that I could be near the scene, basically. All the clubs in that area on Sunset and in West Hollywood where all of that was going on. And I was also involved in the feminist movement and the Women's Building, which was also a pretty radical place to be in. I worked there and exhibited there. I also have an MFA in photography. So I have an interdisciplinary background. So I had my foot in music, in the visual arts. And then when I ended up getting my MFA in photography, I went to CalArts to study interdisciplinary performance making. And that's where About Productions actually started. I began collaborating with a group of people there. And when we got out of school, we decided to start a 501c3 not-for-profit theater company. And I laugh because, I tell people if I knew then what I know now, I probably would have never done that. But the reality was that, going back to the questions about Latino, Latinx creations and our audiences, it really had to be done. It was a DIY reality. And that's why we created the company, because we knew that no one else was going to produce this work, partially because of its content, but also because it was experimental. It was interdisciplinary theater making / performance. And that if we waited around for someone to give us permission or to offer us an invitation, we'd probably still be waiting. And there were companies in LA that were embracing what we were doing. They were primarily in the performance end of things, which was Highways, which is still in Santa Monica, which is a performance space, very, very respected nationally performance space, and LACE, LA Contemporary Exhibitions. They were downtown, and that's where a lot of Osco and Gronk showed their work early on, but it was very mixed in terms of the different types of arts they were showing there. Lace is now in Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard, but there were certain spaces where we could show the work. And we also decided early on that we wouldn't have our own theater and that we would really be production oriented, that we would, because our collaborative work takes several years to develop. And we wanted to be able to focus on the development of new work. And we also have a Young Theater Works program that is for highest risk youth. So those two things have been able to grow over the 33-year period. If we had had one space in one geography or one community, we probably wouldn't have the wide net that we've been able to cast for our work, because we perform all over LA County. And as you said earlier, we've performed nationally and been on national television. So there's certain things I think that wouldn't have developed or come our way if we had just picked a theater and stayed in one neighborhood. So like with this piece, our company office is in Pasadena, but we have made inroads into Bell Gardens, which is a very underserved community. We also serve East LA, Lincoln Heights, Boyle Heights, generally speaking, and we're in Lincoln Heights at Plaza de la Raza at the Marco Albert Theater for the premiere of Adobe Punk. But all these neighborhoods that we have served and communities and youth that we have served, we probably wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't had this notion that maybe we should not rent or own a theater it does make it challenging, but we do have partners. Plaza is a partner. We've done many things with Plaza, especially at the Marco Albert Theater, but we have produced at many other theaters in LA as well.
All right. And that's the other plaza, Plaza de la Raza.
The other Plaza, exactly. Your
Park.
sister.
That's right. Oh, now let's hone in a little bit of on Adobe Punk. It's three. Is it just the three actors that are on
Yes.
stage the entire time?
They're on the stage the entire time. It's three characters. One is Mexican American, one is a Lebanese American, and one is Anglo American. And that is because in the early 80s, Bell Gardens was going through a transitional period where it used to be pretty diverse. But then it became as what it is now, which is almost 99% Latino. And in the 80s, though, it was in that middle ground where, and there is a Lebanese community still in Bell Gardens and in Bell. But the white community, the white population pretty much moved out of Bell and, Southeast LA, which is Huntington Park, Bell, Downey. It's the industrial belt, it's often called, of LA, the Southeast LA. And it's called the industrial belt because there were a lot of factories there, especially starting in the 40s during World War II. And so it was really kind of like a company town in a way. A lot of families, they worked at these factories and they lived in the neighborhoods adjacent to these workplaces. And then, of course, those factories started to shut down, and that was in this period that we're in. So it was, like I said, it was transitional. You had still white families, and you had Lebanese families and Mexican American families. So that's why we have the three, what we describe as disparate, seemingly disparate characters, but what they have in common is the love of punk music.
Yeah, and I guess the audition process was pretty tough. You had to find somebody who could
Yes.
both act and play the instruments. Who's this?
Harrowing, yes, this is Karis Brizendine, and she plays Noreen. And as you can see there, she is the electric guitar player. Fortunately, Karis had some musical background, and so we were lucky to have her. We are lucky to have her. The other two were very difficult. We ended up not finding a Mexican-American actor who could play drums. That's Isaac Cruz there on the drums, and he was so into the role. He'd done some beatboxing, and a lot of actors have been in musicals and they've sung, and they have that experience, but drumming is so specific. It's just as specific as being an actor, and it's rare that someone's a really good actor and a drummer. It's more common like someone plays guitar, because guitar is a common, like, Mayu has their guitar just sitting right there in her place. It's common for people to pick up the guitar somewhere along the way, especially actors. And then the other challenge was to find a Middle Eastern actress who could play bass. So it wasn't. We made it really hard on ourselves. And that was Giselle Estes. I'm sorry, I always get her name. Etasami, Giselle Etasami, Iraqi American actress, and she had played guitar, but she'd never played bass. So we had those challenges, but because it's punk music, also we were able to work that. Our band is pretty tight at this point. Punks in the era, a lot of them would get on stage literally with not even knowing their instrument, barely knowing it.
Oh yeah,
that was very punk,
Three chords and some heavy drums and thumping, and
yeah,
a lot of it was the attitude. It was a punk attitude.
Exactly.
Right. And tell us a little bit about the music.
The music is co-written by myself and Nina Diaz. I wrote the lyrics and Nina wrote the music. Nina hails from San Antonio, Texas. She is a well-known singer-songwriter who was in the band Girl in a Coma, which was an all-girl rock / punk band. But she's been solo since the band transitioned, basically. It's no longer a band. And she was one of our, when we did Evangeline, the Queen of Make-Believe, which you mentioned earlier, which has highlights and features the Los Lobos songbook, it premiered in 2012. We remounted it in 2018 for the 50th anniversary of the walkouts, because the Evangeline story has the walkouts as its backdrop. And the first year we remounted it, we had Gabby Moreno as our lead singer. In that piece, the actors do not play instruments or sing. We had a band inside the piece, center stage, who play all the songs. But in the second year, in 2019, we asked Nina Diaz to join our company and be the lead singer for all the Los Lobos songs. And that started our relationship with her. And when we needed someone to write the music for these punk songs, it really kind of was at that point a no-brainer to go to Nina, she has great punk credentials and rock credentials.
And she's local now, right?
Well, she was living in LA for a number of years, but then she's now back in San Antonio and working there. She built a studio in San Antonio, a music studio. And so she's developing she's actually just putting out a new album that she produced in this new studio that she put together.
All right. Well, here we're going to listen to a minute's worth of a song called Diddly Squat. And is it a minute long song, or is it just a snippet?
No, it's just the excerpt that you have is a minute. And this version is sung by Nina Diaz.
All right, here it goes.
And performed.
Don't have diddly squat, don't have diddly squat, don't have diddly squat, but we have the right to keep what we got. No one thinks we have the right to trace our own psycho side. No one hears, they only fear the sound draining out our ears. Don't have diddly squat, but we have the right to keep what we got. Right to scream, right to shout, to stake a claim on this empty house. Right to jump, right to kick, lock out the door and find our niche. Don't have diddly squat, but we have the right to keep what we got. Hey!
Oh, incredible. That's good. That's a catchy tune.
Yeah, thank you. It is catchy. And it refers to the notion that they don't have diddly squat, which, means they don't have much or anything. And then, of course, that they are squatting.
Oh, there we go.
There it goes.
Well, we have, let's see, just here on Facebook, Ellison Sotomayor, she's saying, I love diddly squat.
Okay.
And Jaime Moreno, it sounds really good. So thank you. All right. Well,
thank you, Allison.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a lot. Thank you so much to the both of you for giving us just the synopsis and a little bit of what your respective musicals are about. Let's talk a little bit broadly about musicals and that genre. What I know, Teresa, you've done musicals in the past, of course, with Evangeline and others. What is it? What brings you to returning to that format over and over again?
Well, what we've done with our so-called musicals is we've tried to create new forms, new strategies and structures for presenting the music. The first time we did it really intensively was with By the Hand of the Father with Alejandro Escovedo, who is Sheila E.'s uncle and Pete Escovedo's brother, who and has ties to Santana, of course, as well. And that actually had Alejandro in the show and featured his songbook. And it was about the 20th century journey of the Mexican-American father. And it had 4 writers, Rose Portillo, Eric Gutierrez, myself, and Oscar Garza, and video by Janice Tanaka. And it was really short stories built into one cohesive piece. And the short stories were about these different Mexican-American fathers who were born in the teens and 20s and who crossed the border at an early age and became urban Mexican-Americans. And so that was our first inspirational journey with music and finding a unique way to tell these stories. And then, you know, Evangeline was another one of those. And each one has, as I like to say, has its own logic. Each of these pieces has its own logic. So it's not trying to emulate any other forms. They are theatrical, and they are on the stage, and they use theatrical devices to tell the stories. And in that way, kind of in a traditional way, meaning costume, lighting, set design, all the things that theatricality can bring to the table. But the structures for each of these pieces is completely different. You know, that's just, you know, our our way of doing things.
Sure. And do you think musical, that genre, does it do people respond to it more than if it were just say a drama or a comedy? Does the music help to tell the story? And the question is for both of you, for Mayu and for Teresa.
Well, I would say yes, of course, the music adds to the story. And to me, the musical theater brings together the most beautiful things in the world: music, storytelling, poetry, dance, drama, costumes. I mean, it brings together the most beautiful things in the world. And so that's the magic of musical theater. And that's the difficulty of musical theater, because you have to make it work together. And I think that's why there's so little of them. But it's wonderful. It's, I mean, to me, it's the most beautiful art form.
How about for you, Teresa?
Well, I was just thinking, you know, I totally agree with all of that. And of course, and music is such a powerful way to tell a story and to move an audience. And it operates on our bodies and our minds in a very different way than just language or text does. And the combination of the two, if they really are working in a sense with each other, or if they're working against each other for a certain, you know, purpose, but basically they're on the stage together, it's very, very powerful. And in our story in Adobe Punk, the actors or the characters are actually writing these songs that we're hearing. So we're inside of their creative process, and, you know, in a sense, rooting for them to come up with interesting ideas. And they're also on a creative journey. So the creative journey is to become, on some level, have a voice, let's say. They're figuring that out for themselves. They're post high school, but they're not in college because they're growing up in this working class neighborhood. But yet they're super creative. And they also feel like, you know, the punk scene isn't just in Hollywood. It can be, and this was very true at the time, it can be in East LA, it can be in Bell Gardens, it could be in Downey, it can be, you know, in Orange County, it can be, you know, it doesn't have to, I mean, Hollywood, of course, was a hotbed of you know, venues and clubs.
Sure. No, it could be in the
backyard parties in East LA. There was the Vex in East LA. So, you know,
in my hometown in Wilmington, California, of course, there was a big scene in the harbor area as well. My brother was in a punk band, and I'd go up on stage and just it was completely DIY. Anybody could be in a punk band, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you know who the Minutemen are then.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, and they're one of our main inspirational bands and references in the show, or the Minutemen.
Fantastic. Mayu, yours is of course a different kind of music altogether. It's more orchestral.
Yes.
And
It's more
so,
classic. It's like more classic Broadway style music. But if you pay attention, it's based on Latin rhythms. I mean, you can't see it initially, but if you pay attention, you'll realize it's like son, danzón, huapango, all kinds of Latin rhythms. So it's very interesting how it's like like hidden in the music, but once you pay attention, you can hear it. It's very beautiful.
all right. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much to the both of you. One final thing: do you see this genre of musical? Do you see it growing and expanding? I know that in movies, anyway, we have In the Heights last year that came out, centered on the East Coast. West Side Story, of course, very classic. I mean, more than 50 years old, but with the revival of the movie, then also revivals every now and then in theaters. Do you see this expanding and becoming more popular within the Latino community?
Oh, we're betting on it. We're betting on it.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share the information here on the chat on Facebook. Let's see, Adobe Punk, and you're calling it a zine, right, Teresa? All right. Well, there's the information. It's at Plaza de la Raza. It starts on March 19th. It goes on till April, I believe you said the 11th. There's the click for the event, right? You could buy your tickets there. I'm gonna go ahead and post it on Facebook as well. And then Monarch, a Mexican American musical playing at the Hudson Main Stage Theater. One weekend only, Saturday, March 19th and Sunday, March 20th. Two showings on Saturday and one on Sunday. And there's the ticket information there.
And put the discount code,
I sure
Monarch
will.
25.
There it is right there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Any final thoughts?
Well, thank you for, oh, Teresa, you're in silence.
You're mute. You're muted. There you go. Go ahead, Mayu.
No, thank you for having me. And yes, come to the show. You'll love it. You'll feel happy to see Hispanics represented in a positive light. You'll see our music represented in a very elegant orchestration. And we're hoping people will feel proud of being Hispanics after seeing this show that represents the best of who we are.
All right. Thank you. Teresa.
I just want to say that it's just amazing that the creative community of Latinxs and Latinos are thriving, and that it would be great to have everyone's support for both of these pieces to come out, and because these pieces are being made for these specific communities. And we would love to see you, especially now that the pandemic is waning a little bit. We are requiring people to show vaccination, and because our actors are equity actors, we have to have people in the audience be masked, but please come out. It's very safe and comfortable, and free parking.
The best part.
Yeah, the best part. Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of theater, La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, we have supported theater and will continue to support theater as part of our mission of telling those stories, the untold stories, little known stories of Mexican Americans, and all Latinas and Latinos here in Southern California. And with that, we've done fundraisers, receptions there at La Plaza. We saw Zoot Suit a couple years back.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up on, fortunately, not the same weekend as your shows.
Good.
But, I'll show you. Let's see. It's Ana in the Tropics. It's by Nilo Cruz. It's going to be at A Noise Within. It'll be there starting in a couple weeks, but it'll be a special fundraiser for La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, starting with a reception on the lawn there at Noise Within, which is in Pasadena, and then with a 2 p.m. showtime. It says buy tickets now. Unfortunately, tickets aren't available yet, or else I'd put the link on there as well, but it should be very enjoyable. So come and check it out. It's Ana in the Tropics on April 9th. And then also, you spoke about Rose Portillo. Teresa, Rose Portillo will be a guest with Dan Guerrero next week here on En Casa con la Plaza.
Oh, great.
Yeah, she'll be 7 o'clock next Friday, talking about her career as an actress, as a writer, as a director, producer, and activist. So we're on the theatrical tip here at En Casa con la Plaza.
Wonderful.
All right. So with that, thank you so much, Mayu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Armando. Thank you. Appreciate
welcome.
it so much.
And all of you out there, thank you for joining us. Let's see who else came in today. Let's see if Jaime Moreno. Hopefully you guys can bring your plays to the San Fernando Valley in season. Yeah, Allison is saying Adobe Punk has a VIP fundraiser too on March 27th. So send us that information, Teresa.
Reminding me
and
about
we'll
that.
put it
Yes,
on
thank
our
you.
social media.
Okay, Abelardo, thank you so much.
All
And we'll
right.
get you a discount code as well. We have one. I'll have one specifically for La Plaza.
All right, great. And then, so thank you all for joining us out there. La Plaza de Cultura y Artes is open starting tomorrow. No mask required, no proof of vaccination, but we hope that you continue to stay safe, enjoy yourselves here at La Plaza, and our public programming starts in a couple of weeks as well. In fact, just this last Thursday, we had a screening of the documentary Ruben Salazar, Man in the Middle, with
Philip Rodriguez.
Yeah, with Philip Rodriguez. The director was there entertaining us and giving us some insight on that.
I know Philip very well, so yeah, that's fantastic.
All right, good. And in a couple of weeks, our first family day of the year, in support of for Cesar Chavez Day, with entertainment and workshops for the whole family. That's on the Sunday, the 20th, there at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. And with that, muy buenas noches a todos. Thanks to our sponsors.
Buenas noches. Gracias.
Bye.
Bye. Gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.